Yes, sir.
Hey guys, you're watching Daniel and Gian talk shit, and today we're having a special conversation about the lack of African Americans in Major League Baseball in comparison to the earlier, I don't know, I want to say the past 60 years. Growing up for me, uh, all the best players in baseball I remember were American born African Americans, black people. Barry Bonds, Barry Larkin, Fred McGriff, Frank Thomas, Ken Griffey Jr. I mean, the list goes on. Jim Rice, Andre Dawson, the Hawk. So many not just all star players, but like Hall of Fame caliber players. And I want to say early 2000s. You had your Dontrell Willis, who had like a flash in the pan for a couple seasons because the Marlins went to the World Series, and you had Jimmy Rollins. I want to say Jimmy Rollins was the last one, and those guys are like near and dear to me because they grew up in the Bay Area, so they grew up 20 minutes away from where I grew up. So we had people that were in the same circles because they're around the same age as me as well. But after that, there's just been this big drop off, and I wanted to know why. So we have two guests. This actually was a conversation that started on Twitter with Mr. Aaron Dowell, regular guest Aaron Dowell, and I said, we should do a podcast. And then I remember my friend Chris here, actually met him in November of last year, and he's been doing a lot of stuff with baseball, and this weekend he posted on Instagram about the BBG. There was a tournament, an all-star tournament here. So, let's start with you, Chris. Tell us about the BBG before we go any further here. I mean, it, and yeah, right. Well, I'm Gian Perez, co-host of the Daniel and Gian Talk Shit podcast. Lifelong baseball fan. My parents say I came out the womb with a baseball and a bat in my hands. I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico baseball used to be the biggest sport on the island, and now basketball and boxing have kind of surpassed a little bit, but it's still fairly big. I mean, and there's reasons behind that. We get into why baseball is not as big as it used to be, but uh, most Puerto Ricans love baseball. It's our national sport. So I grew up with it. Roberto Clemente posters on my wall, Orlando Peruchin Cepeda, and then every great Puerto Rican baseball after that: Igor Gonzalez, Pudge Rodriguez, Benito Santiago, the Alomar brothers. I mean, so I can go on down the line to now we got Carlos Correa, Francisco Lindor, Rosario with the Twins. But baseball is my love. It's always been my favorite sport, and it's something I love to talk about, except for this year because the Dodgers, I hate them, and it doesn't count because it was a short season. But
Oh
Aaron,
no.
Aaron, you next, or Daniel, actually, Daniel, you go next. Rickon says you're muted on YouTube, by the way. Okay. To Daniel's left, Aaron, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a huge baseball fan. Grew up watching it. My grandmother's a big baseball fan. My father. So I've been playing my entire life. I played 3 years of college ball in Morehouse College. I I even played when I lived in Korea. I played on some like it was some like rec team, but I was I was like the only non-Korean in this league. With it's like a beer league, but it was fun. So yeah, I've watched baseball my entire life, followed it closely, especially the black players. I remember I had a uh, Andrew McCutcheon T-shirt jersey before people knew who Andrew McCutcheon was. Before he like went in, because and I'm mind you, I'm a Dodgers fan. I'm a huge Dodgers fan. So when Gian says that about them, now come on, they won a World Series. I don't know what else he could with
I mean,
I
it was
don't
a
know,
shortened season. I mean, that's
but they were they were they were the best team though. Like by the whole season, they were the best team. Like it wasn't even close.
They're
So
the best team all season, every season. Okay, but this year it had to take a shortened season for them to win.
anyway, but
I
that's the
mean,
kind of fan I am.
Kershaw didn't like blow his back out. He didn't have enough time to blow his back out yet. So like,
That's not true. That's how he started. He started the year with the back injury.
Well, I know because that was about the time when he'd blow his ear out blow his back out during the year. So we started the season off with his back blown out. So we got lucky this time. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'll take it. You need luck to win championships. So I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, introduce yourself for us, please.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chris Simon, photographer. I shot with a lot of people. Minor league, major league. A lot of just amateur kids, and just recently, we've just been, minor league. Last Saturday we had the baseball generations all-star game, so that was really dope, and just out here, trying to capture baseball history, like in my view. Everybody has their own interest, what piques them, whether it be like for the newspapers or whatever. So I'm just trying to figure out what lane I'm going to justify and going forward. But now I work like personally with the players. So yeah.
So, Daniel, let's
Yes.
see. Okay, now
I fixed it.
go.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Okay.
What I had said was that I started playing baseball from Little League. Like most people were into baseball, I feel like here in the States, you start off playing Little League and you go all the way up till however as far as you go. Whatever the point is when you realize you're not going to be a pro, like that's usually as far as you go. And then when you just want to play for fun, then it just becomes a for fun sport, a leisure sport. So I took it seriously until high school because that's when I stopped playing baseball. It just, for me, the game was always a game. And I realized then that if you want to play in high school, it's no longer just a game. It's a competitive sport. And so for me, it just took a little bit. Like I didn't really care if I struck out or if I, but that matters on a team. That matters if you want to play the sport. So yeah, that's one way of saying that I sucked. But I never stopped watching the game. As I said when I was muted, my dad taught me the sport. So it's very family. Living in Los Angeles, you go to the Dodger game all the time because it's cheap. So it's just a thing you do because you can't afford Laker tickets. You can't afford to go watch. I mean, football wasn't here, but who watches hockey? And anyway, so yeah, that's my story. So lifelong Dodger fan, lifelong baseball fan.
Who watches hockey? Nobody until the Kings start winning, and then all of a sudden the whole city.
Well, to be fair, my uncles they're hockey fans, but they're the only ones I know. So.
All right. Well, all right, we got that out of the way. So
it's a good playoff sport.
It is.
Yeah.
Just like soccer. Just like soccer.
It is. Well, so Chris, like I said earlier at the beginning, you posted on Instagram that you were at the Baseball Generations All-Star Game tournament, and I was like, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
And I know like when I met you, you were like really big into baseball. You were working with pro players and whatnot, taking pictures and stuff. So let me know about. Why don't you let us know about what BBG is?
Yeah. So basically, Dominic Smith from the Mets and some of his friends, Ron Miller, and then Tim Ravar, they had started Baseball Generations in Los Angeles, probably 2016, 17. They started it with a few players around Major League Baseball. They showed up to the event that they had back then. So I guess it would be like Aaron Hicks, and just over time, I guess like even Lucas Giolito, Tim Anderson, say like we also had, but they weren't at the game. I'm saying a lot of people are just wearing the shirts, the Baseball Generation shirts. They're out repping it, like some like more known players over there. Let's see, Flaherty.
The catcher.
Jack Flaherty. He was at the game. He was just there. He wasn't even coaching or anything. Jazz Chisholm. He plays for the Marlins. He's supported baseball generations from jump because he knows all of them. Let's see. CC Sabathia was there because his son was
nice.
playing in the game. He was actually the MVP of the game. He came off the bench and got
CC's son.
Yeah, CC's son got 3 for 3.
Off the bench.
Off the bench. Yeah. And he didn't pitch. Everybody asked me if he pitched, but he didn't pitch.
How big's
Andrew
his
Jones.
son? His son is a big boy.
His son's a big boy, yeah. And then Andrew Jones, center fielder from the Braves.
Of course.
His
Well,
son
he
was
was.
yeah. Oh yeah. Also, yeah, he came over there late in his career. Yeah. So he played in the game. His son. He won the home run derby, and then Carl Crawford. His son played in the game.
Carl. The guy forgot about
Yeah.
Carl Crawford.
He
Yeah.
also played for the Dodgers later in his career.
Yep.
You know, it's a whole continuum of Dodgers players.
Infamous Dodger.
Yeah.
For other reasons.
Yeah, J.P. Crawford was the Gold Glove winner for the Mariners for the AL this year. He came over from Philadelphia in the Gene Segura trade. So that was like 2 years ago, basically, that he went over, and he was one of the coaches. It was Dom Smith versus J.P. Crawford's team. So that was the All-Star game thing. So they had a home run derby. Then they had the All-Star game afterwards. So that was like throughout the day. I was the one who was getting all the pictures for the white screen, all the just all the throughout the day. You know what I mean? Getting everything. Rock Nation was a sponsor. Baseballism. This guy who's a baseballologist. He's like a big baseball guy, like a blogger. He was there capturing, doing interviews with people. Dom's agent was very present. It was a really good day. And the thing is that this is the event that it was the most pro presence at the game.
Right.
So that was really cool. And last year was really dope. But last year it was with fans in the stands or whatever, but it was at a high school stadium. St. Bernard's. If you guys are familiar, it's in Playa Vista, I believe.
It's a small private school. That's where The Wood takes place. The film.
Yeah.
Yeah, St. Bernard's. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's where we had the game last year. This year we had it in a minor league stadium. This year we had it in the 66ers stadium in San Bernardino.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
So it's a lot of growth. Plus, with Dominic Smith this year, he basically had, with what happened with Floyd,
Yeah.
where basically, there was a big, uproar throughout, the community, but most of all, through basketball. But there wasn't as much noise in the initial reaction with Major League Baseball, and Dominic Smith went out and he took a knee, and he was by himself. And that caused a lot of questions of why he was the only one doing it. And so that started, he was questioned after the game, and he was brought to tears, saying that he's just tired of what goes on the day-to-day between, police brutality and everything like that. So that brought a lot of awareness between, it being on SportsCenter and every other talking about it. You even had Chris Broussard talking about all these people that just talk about basketball and this and that. They were talking about baseball, but it wasn't about the game of baseball. It was about the fact that there's finally, there's some sort of awakening between the baseball community and a realization that we need to really start, looking into inner cities. We need to help in different ways. Like baseball could be one of those ways. And it was just that point where baseball and basketball were at the center because they were being played in a time, when it was, it was a different time, the way that the game was being played. No fans in the stadium, everything. So the next game, every player went out and they did it. They wore a Black Lives Matter shirt. So, he created a major.
Right. His teammates came out in support of him, and then the opposing team as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was big because we're at this point now where you don't really see highlights of baseball on ESPN. You do, but not like it used to be. You know,
No, totally,
you know,
totally. When we were growing up, I mean, it was a mainstay. I mean, it was really way above. You know, I mean, hockey. Now you would say that it's shown like hockey.
I remember as a kid, like if the A's or the Giants were in the World Series, like they would put the games on in our classroom to
Yeah.
watch the World Series. Like
No, I mean,
that's how important
baseball is a big
baseball
deal.
was. You
That's
know,
great.
and then you know it's not the same anymore. And I mean, and I guess
Steroids.
that
Steroids.
that well, this was Kevin Mitchell, you know, Will
Oh,
Clark
totally,
years,
totally.
you know, late '80s, and you know, in the steroids and the Bash Brothers, yeah,
Yeah.
Canseco
No,
and
I mean,
McGuire.
at the end of the day, they didn't. It wasn't something that they were ready to harp on because they were enjoying the benefits of it. You know, so
Right, absolutely. But
yeah.
so let me ask you guys. So
Yeah.
I brought up I see this article in about Dusty Baker. It came out in April of this year, and let me throw it in the chat. But there's a note in here that says in 1981, the league got up to 18.1% African American players, and now before we started, you were saying it's right around what 7%,
7%.
7.5.
Yeah.
That I mean that's a huge amount of
And it
and
should
it's
be double that. It should be half of a quarter of Major League Baseball at least.
right, exactly. So let me shoot this over to you, Aaron. Why do you think that is? I mean, I have some theories as well, but why don't you kick us off? Why do you think that the sport has kind of lost its luster in the community?
Um, that's a good question because I did grow up playing it. I grew up playing it my entire life. I grew up in Compton, and I remember growing up. I used to actually play baseball in the city of Carson because they actually had a citywide league. Compton didn't have any baseball league until I was like 13 or 14.
Oh
Because
wow.
they saw kids going over to Carson and playing in there, like not just baseball but like basketball, football leagues. So they started to start their own baseball league. Um, but so if I like one of the reasons why I think you see these numbers go down is just baseball became more expensive
Mm-hmm.
to play. Like it's an expensive game. You buy a metal bat. Even when I was a kid, you buy a metal bat that's well over $100. Baseballs wear out, so you have to constantly get baseballs, or you lose baseballs. You have to have a decent glove. So just the economics of the sport uh, makes it difficult. And you think, but historically, yeah, but also historically, I don't. It's hard for me to believe that things were as expensive as they are. You also saw Major League Baseball, especially in the 70s and 80s, they start to invest in places outside of America. They started to like set up
Right.
in other places. Um, and so I think those are a couple of factors why.
Yep.
And it
What about
takes time to get to the major leagues.
I mean, look at
This is
all
true.
the old movies.
Right.
All the old movies, you'd see stickball. The kids in the street with the stick and a ball, no field, no nothing. Obviously, that's New York, right? But
Yeah.
the point is, it was a cheap sport, or even Sandlot. They just needed a place to run around in, basically, and because that's how I remember playing. When we weren't playing Little League, we had access to the Little League fields to just go and do those things, but we didn't need much. You don't need very much to just play. But then, as you guys said, to go professional, you need more. Today, I mean, I don't know what it's like today, but just when I was playing Little League, people were being signed up for Marine League, travel ball, year round. Like, I was like tired by just playing regular spring and then a winter. I'm like, let alone the whole year. Like,
I remember, say towards the end of my high school years, that in my city where my high school was at, they had an American Legion team, and that was like summer league. So you'd play the high school season, and then summer comes, and you'd play all summer and you would travel, but it was only summer. And it was one of those things where you get sponsored or someone sponsored the team as well. Because I didn't grow up in an affluent neighborhood either. Most of the kids were like Mexican kids, within the community. within like the lower income community that were playing on this American Legion team. So it wasn't a money thing back then, but now, like, fast forward, I remember just 4 years later, like my ex-girlfriend's little brother was 4 years younger than me, and he was playing on a travel ball team, on different levels of travel ball team, and it was expensive. Like, they were talking, I think they charged like $4 or $5 grand just for, like, a couple months.
And
they
that's
were
not
going all over the
including
place.
school that you need to do already, feeding the kid, housing the kid, every other, expense that you have to afford to survive, to afford the luxury of playing baseball.
Right. And that's not to mention, like, now we're talking about personal coaches. You got so many American-born players that are coming from affluent families that have a pitching coach, have a hitting coach.
I even had
all these.
Yeah, I had he played with Eckersley, Dennis Gonzalez, that's what his name was. He was my, like, pitching coach, and I learned a lot. He pitched. He was a major league pitcher, and Blue Moon Odom. Like, I had these people that my dad paid for through what I don't know what it was, in terms of, like, how we got these things, but it didn't do me any good. I didn't become a big professional ball player, and that was just at my little level. I can't imagine people who paid. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally at like a small house in Torrance because he was, like, in Torrance, from Torrance or something like that, and he was, like, teaching out of his garage, and that's what it was. We had a wooden mound and a row machine and do all these exercises, and you learn the fundamentals. You learn how to pitch. I learned how to pitch. I know how to throw a ball 100%. But that was one summer, 2 summers in a row, not like every day for the rest of my life, and
Not a weekly thing at all. And the other thing too that I've thought about that I've never really seen anybody, like, and maybe somebody has, and if you have, like, provide the literature in the comment section. But as a kid that grew up in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, the explosion of basketball, and it's embraced by the hip hop community. Like, does that maybe have a factor to do with it as well? Because I remember as a kid, rappers wearing fitted hats and baseball jerseys, and that completely changed at a certain point. And part of it was like, you can't wear cleats to school, so the Jordans and basketball sneakers in general blew up.
But Griffey had his own shoes.
That's true. He had some
Griffey did this, the backwards hat. That's Griffey right there. For me, as growing up, that's what I, like, associate with baseball. At least baseball players, the backwards hat. That's the Griffey.
I think maybe the NBA also may have done a better job of getting their players out there, because baseball also, it's not the NFL where they have to wear a mask. You can't really see their faces. In baseball, you see them. Their faces are out there. And I just think about, because I grew up in the 90s too, so I remember all this about Ken Griffey Jr. I was a Dodgers fan, but I still love Griffey because Griffey was everywhere. He had his own video game, And I think of that in context. Mike Trout's white, but think about how poorly utilized he is as like probably the best player of a generation. Where there's no way the NBA wouldn't, like, put the person out there.
Well, I think historically, who was cool? Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, and what was cool? Yeah. What was cool about them? Stuff that Mike Trout is not doing. Like, he's not going out with the with the drink in his hand and the cigar in his mouth or a cigarette, whatever.
That's also a testament to the lack of popularity that baseball has right now.
But Reggie Jackson,
10 years before, Derek Jeter was out there pulling every celebrity girl,
all of
every
them?
like every single one. Didn't matter what race.
Mariah Carey's still talking about about the time they used to hook up. Mariah Carey's still talking about that. So
Derek Jeter had an NDA. He took your cell phone and he made you sign an NDA when you went to his house or hotel room.
Before Drake, before any of these people.
But Chris, we brought you on. Why don't you tell us from an East Coast perspective? Because you're from Queens, right? That's where you grew up?
Nah, Brooklyn.
My bad. See?
Nah,
Sorry.
don't worry about it.
I
Nah,
feel like
actually,
you guys get all offended if you say the wrong borough out there. I'm just
no
saying.
way. Nah, I don't. I personally don't. I got love for every borough. Everybody. So, but yeah, I'm from by like Coney Island, Brighton Beach. So I grew up by.
Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. And it's there's a minor league team for the Mets that they just bumped up to Double A, the Brooklyn Cyclones.
Oh wow.
And my cousin is the assistant general manager there. So I've just been with the Mets it's like the last it kind of just came together beautifully like the '99 season. I just started watching them and all that. Like they were down, like basically they were just not a good team up to like the middle basically like June 8th, June 6th, something like that. They were playing the Yankees. They fired some coaches. They played on Sunday Night Baseball, and it turned around from there. I became a Met fan from like basically that point. They went to NLCS, like they had a couple of good year run. Fan from then. Then my cousin, was working for them, so it just like kept going from there. And I would go to a lot of games, but I don't want to talk too much, like as far as did I answer what you were saying, like as far as like how I got into baseball or watching it and all that.
No, I guess my question was more like your perspective on how baseball on the East Coast African American community versus
Okay.
and what you see, what you've noticed, like the push or lack thereof.
I mean, yeah, that's the reason why I didn't even jump on that part, because he just answered it perfectly. Like it's the same thing, like and really, it's like it's more of like just basketball is such a simple sport to get into, and like people need to put their undivided attention into baseball. It's not like a sport that you like. Yeah, there's players that are playing multi sports, but they're just God given. Like baseball is made up of tons of utility players and players that could just play first base, and it could be a lot of kids that play power forward that could be playing first base. You know what I mean? Or small forward in high school if they put all their time into it. You know what I mean? And we just don't see it because they didn't put the time into learn how to hit a baseball. So and it's just off of convenience. It really is. It's really off of convenience, unfortunately. And also the price of it, the price and convenience.
There's a certain level. I've said this before in conversations with other people, but with baseball is the only sport where your athleticism stops at a certain level if you don't have the skill. Like basketball, if you're fast, you can jump high, you can still play the game at a high level to a certain extent. You might not become LeBron James, you might not become Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I'm using the top of the top right there, but you could play professionally to a certain extent on pure athleticism alone without knowing all the fundamentals of the game. And same thing with football. Football, like speed, strength, athleticism, agility will get you to a certain point where you could still play professionally, maybe not become a Pro Bowler, maybe not become a Hall of Famer, but you can get to the league. Baseball, if your fundamentals aren't where they need to be by, like Daniel was saying, by high school, and you don't continue with it, you're done. It's a sport. And I think
only in Disney movies do you do you become a 40-year-old pitcher who goes into the MLB and
There were a couple of major leaguers who I think it was Preston Wilson used to play for the Rockies, a center fielder. I think he said he didn't pick up baseball until he was in high school, but it still is a skills gap. I remember
Wilson.
Who was that?
His dad was Mookie Wilson.
Yeah, see, so again, like,
I didn't know that. I didn't know Mookie was his dad. Oh,
yeah.
See, I didn't know either. But yeah, but like but there is still, like, I remember USA Today had like published this years ago, like maybe 15 years ago. They said that the 10 hardest things to do in sports, and the number one hardest thing was to hit a 90+ mile per hour fastball, because if you can't do that, you're not making the major leagues.
The thought right out of mine. Like, that's exactly what I was going to say. Hardest thing to do to the baseball.
It's hard, and that's just a 90. Like 90s, that means that you're elite college. That doesn't mean that's not even a breaking ball or anything else.
I knew that baseball was not the sport for me when I went to Mulligan's and I went into the 80 mile an hour fast pitch. At Little League, though, obviously I'm too young for that. I'm not going to come across an 80 mile an hour.
Tell them what Mulligan's is.
You mean the golf, the miniature golf place that used to have batting cages? That doesn't.
Yeah,
there's no batting cages.
Yeah.
There's no batting cages anymore. But that's where you want.
Oh,
if you
really?
wanted to go, I mean, I don't really know of any. What are batting cages?
There's not as many batting cages as there used to be.
No, not at all. I mean, when I was growing up, you can go to a few places. Now it's like a specialized, like I think it's called House of Hardball here, and it's like a specialized like baseball only facility as opposed to like, oh, gonna go to miniature golf and then go get to the batting cages is for fun or whatever.
Word.
And and so, but I remember, you go in as a little leaguer, you hit the 40 mile an hour, the watermelon pitches, the whatever, the pumpkin or whatever, and you're just, it's, oh, this is great, I'm going to be an MLB player. And then you go to the fast pitch and it's like, poof, and I'm like, wait, what? Randy Johnson throws 105 and I'm supposed to go up there?
Yo,
can't even.
I got one more for you. I went to the batting cages in
Gian, you're muted. Hold on, Gian, you're muted. You muted yourself.
Yeah, I know. I got a FaceTime call from my kid.
Oh, okay, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'll save it because he's gonna want to hear this.
No, go ahead. We're live. Let's keep this going. Yeah, just tell. He can hear you.
All right. So basically, when I was like 7 years old, like I was in the batting cages and like, mind you, like I played like in a league and everything, but I don't know what I was doing. I stood on home plate when I was in the batting cages.
Did you Happy Gilmore did?
The ball, man. And I was like 7 years old, 6 years old, like in Coney Island batting cages. Good thing it was only like 40 miles an hour or whatever. But I definitely got hit in the leg though, and that shit hurt. Oh man.
Yeah. And that's 40. That's what I'm saying. An 80, 90 mile an hour. An 80 would be slow. An 80 would be off speed in the major leagues.
Dude, those batting cage balls are like this super hard.
They are
rock hard rubber too.
We never wanted to break.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because think about this too. Batting cages. There's one that I know because again I'm from Compton, and so there's one called Rexwell that I still to this day I was there Sunday because I just go to the batting cage just for the hell of it. But that's like the only one that I can think of in this whole South LA area. Is that one batting cage, and it still takes me 15 minutes. Like one thing that kept me going in baseball was there's a coach here, Gerald Pickens in Compton. He's really known in Compton because he's been coaching at Centennial High School for years. But in Compton, we have this ballpark called Jackie Robinson Field, which was, I guess, it's like the size of a minor league, like an old school minor league park. And he would just kids, like any kid that lives here, kids would walk up off the street and he would just give them a place where they can play baseball in a safe environment. He would find baseball gloves for them, where they didn't have to present all these things. And just by having a place where kids can just go and play and learn the game, and he would organize games with other cities and other coaches from other places. I think that goes a long way. But after Compton started that baseball league that I talked about, it only lasted for us like a few years, and then they stopped. I remember they actually built a swimming pool that cut into left field of like their biggest little league field.
Jesus Christ!
My little league became a target. I mean, my little league 3-field complex. It was every year was popular. Never a down year in terms of rosters, registration, and all that stuff. And then Target bought the land. And they turned it into a Target. So that all those fields just gone. So how many generations of kids aren't going to have baseball like that anymore? And then they tried to resurrect it, but it'll never be the same. A place that was there since the 50s.
Since Mm-hmm.
So that's the.
That's just insane.
Bought for a Target.
Well,
which everybody in the town who boycotted went and shopped at. So it's like they just. They boycotted the Target. No, don't shop here, and now they're all shopping there. So it's
that's part of the game. That's just posturing.
Yeah.
That's just
Well,
doing it. So you don't gotta catch a sheet from other communities and other people around. Like you done messed up a whole hold on generation of kids that could have played baseball.
Yep,
Whatever.
just like that. And it was huge community involvement. Every year you'd have your little ceremonies where the fire department, the police would come. They'd all like squirt guns with each other and stuff like that. I mean, that in today's day and age where you have this huge distrust for, armed forces and stuff like that, to just have that sense of community where they can all come together, even if it was like twice in a season or something, it still instills a little bit of like confidence and helps everybody for everything. I don't know. But it's gone now. Like I said, it's a parking lot, and the only time the cops go there now is to arrest somebody or something. So,
so Aaron, let me ask you something. I think it was ESPN that did a 30 for 30 about, Eric Davis is one of my favorite players as a kid, and Darryl Strawberry, and then Royce Clayton came out, and they would go, but they would go
LA people.
They would go to the neighborhood park and train in the off season. What the fuck happened with those guys? Why didn't they try to start some sort of community league?
Oh, that's another thing that Dom says in a lot of the interviews. That's why he started Baseball Generation. My bad about that. For cutting you
go
off.
for it.
But he was saying that like the reason why he had started because a lot of people didn't come back and like do anything for the community. That was the reason that he wanted to make it to begin with, was so he can go back and he can help the kids and give them the same opportunities that he didn't have. Because it took him till he was like almost in high school to see that these opportunities were real.
Right.
That all you had to do be who you were supposed to be, but it's a lot more complicated in those areas.
Something about Smith too is that he went to Sarah. So Sarah's like a small private school, but it's like a really black private school. I think Gian mentioned the fact that they're like a feeder school for USC, especially with football and track.
Yep.
Right. So I say that because you see a lot of these major leaguers too, especially black major leaguers. They get picked out of middle school to go to these prep schools and these real like high end private schools amongst with no black folk, so the fact
you got to get selected, you got to get taken out of your community to even get there. And like kids don't even want to do that in junior high school. Like if you ask the kid in junior high school, do you want to leave your friends? Do you want to go chill with some white kids like that are gonna judge you and make sure that you feel like you're beneath them? And all 4 years you're in high school, like no, that's not every white kid, but I'm saying like a good majority of them will sit there, and even if it's a boarded school or whatever it is, even if it's you just going and you traveling to.
And you better be good at baseball too. At that point, you better be good at baseball to go through all that too, because if you're not and you still get put through all of it, you're gonna have all that baggage of that hatred, that everything. Why did I do this? It's
word,
and it's like a waste of time.
At the end of the day.
Because I'm a Dodgers fan. I love Matt Kemp. I remember the first time I heard Matt Kemp speak, I was like, I don't think he went to a prep school, because you can also like hear the difference in the way, because they come from the black community, and then you go to these prep schools, and 4 years of not just that training but the education, usually they come out different at times,
Well, yeah,
so I remember
you just close your eyes and you're like, is he black or white? And then the fact that you could even ask that question just lets you know what you're saying is true.
But there's also goes back to the demographics. You're playing ball on a travel team. Every kid is for the most part is white. Like I remember, like I brought up my ex's brother. He was on a team where it was him and this half Mexican, half Puerto Rican. He's Salvadorian. So it was him, this half Mexican, half Puerto Rican kid, and then the rest of the team was white. And they went on a tournament. They went to a tournament to South Dakota or Montana. Montana. And they're walking down the street, and other like teenagers are driving by screaming at them, like dropping N-bombs.
The Klan's coming.
And they're sitting there like looking around to see like who they talking
to. I'm just trying to play baseball.
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't realize that they were the N-bomb.
Oh.
Feel bad for those. Oh wait, they're talking about me.
But but you see this systemically. Even when I was at Morehouse, so all these black colleges have baseball teams. In fact,
Yeah.
when I was at Morehouse, we didn't have one for a long time. The most famous baseball player is, I think, Don McClendon out of Morehouse. He was on the Mets 68, I want to say, title team
And also,
69.
he was the manager.
Oh,
Or
so
is
yeah,
that Lloyd McClendon? Or is that Lloyd McClendon? Okay, no.
yeah, you think about
And
Lloyd, yeah. So he was like the most famous one. And then the baseball team, they stopped having a baseball team. So when I came in as a freshman in 2002, they had a club team, and then I became an official sport, a special team in 2003, and I was on the team from there. But I remember my AD, who went to Morehouse too, who also coached the team my last couple of years. So he played football and baseball at Morehouse in the 70s. You know, he was there with like Spike Lee and these different people. And that's why the team came back, because he was so passionate about baseball and having it. But he talked about how difficult it is for these black schools to even get into the tournaments, this baseball college World Series, because the way that they even rank these different conferences, these black teams have to almost play like perfect baseball to get a shot to go. I remember the team we played against that was probably the best team in our conference at the entire time I was there was Albany State. Albany State had a couple of guys who scouts would come and like watch them strike us out. Essentially, that's how good like the Albany State players were.
You were
Right?
you were for the reels. That's what you were. You were the guy going.
No, I remember one guy. He was so good that he was like and it was like the last game of the season. So, but he had scouts there, and he was working on his curveball against us, and it was like, hey, like we get it, but he was,
and this just proves the point about how good you need to be to even be in the position to be scouted, let alone to be signed. Because if he gets signed, what's he going to get? Put in a minor league team? He might enter the draft to get sent to the minor league team for 10 years?
Yeah.
And maybe make league minimum at a certain point, like hopefully
10 years. if he makes it to 25 and he's still in the minors, that's like amazing, But Albany State was a historically black college. By the time I went started to play against them, they weren't necessarily like as black as they had been historically, but the baseball team was still pretty much black, So, but they, as good as they were, they still had trouble getting into some of these World Series tournaments for Division II, at least, because of just the historical nature of being at a black school in a black conference. It was just that much more difficult, So I'm like, I don't even know how the scouts even know to go to Albany State, which is in Albany, Georgia. Who knows where Albany, Georgia is? But it's like that's part of like the issues and it's systemic, because how does that kid make it to the majors? Just like Dan saying, how? Potentially
Instagram. Instagram.
You also have baseball scouts will find any player under a rock, but
if they put their money to invest, like that's the thing about it. Like when these places were like these organizations were like, we're going to create camps in the Dominican, we're going to create camps in these other. That means they're moving resources that might have been scouring places off.
Yeah,
off.
And they missed it right in front of their face.
Yeah, and so that kid that is playing basketball that might have played baseball, but he knows the scouts are not going to be at the baseball game, but they'll be at this basketball game or AAU game or something like that. He'll probably go. So it's also, I just want to bring this up because there's this article in New York U.S. News by David Canton, who was a Black Studies professor, and he mentions 3 reasons why the numbers of black baseball players has declined, and one of them is the economic. He talks about the federal housing, how you started having people move to suburbs, so white people now had this space and they had fields and they had things that people who weren't able to go out there had. These are like things that happened in like the 50s and 60s. He even talks about mass incarceration, how that started to ramp up in the late 70s, and then you have this whole glut of black men getting arrested and thrown in jail. And that's, if you find those older black men, they all love baseball. You know, they all grew up playing baseball, but if they're not there to teach their kids,
Of course they did, because who was watching basketball back then?
Word. That's cold blooded, man. Yeah, there's a lot of baseball fans, black baseball fans that could
older people,
the game of baseball, and because they weren't there, them kids went and played basketball.
I can't even
Something else
name
that was
any
simple.
like basketball players. I can't
What?
even name. I was gonna say I can't even name basketball players that were in the 450s and 60s. What, Jerry West? That's it. Like,
Wow.
I mean,
Chamberlain,
I'm just making a joke
Elgin
here.
Baylor.
I'm just making a joke here, but it's just
But
like,
the thing,
Robertson.
they weren't celebrities like baseball players
right.
were.
That's what I'm saying.
You know,
Right.
Reggie Jackson was a personality beyond the baseball field.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
and
Okay. A quick aside here. I just want to throw this out there. Okay. It was Daniel. We did a podcast 3 or 4 years ago, and then Daniel was talking about when he found out that Hanley Ramirez was Dominican.
I had that experience.
It, like,
I thought he was a black
it took
guy.
him-
I thought he was black. I really did.
With Mondesi.
Never thought that, but yeah.
Go ahead, Gian.
Crazy.
Finish the story.
but what I'm saying is, like, sometimes people want to tell people the names on the jerseys, and they look out on the field, they see a bunch of black people because of the slave trade in Dominican Republic and Venezuela and Puerto Rico and Cuba, so on and so forth. But then when they see the names, it kind of changes their perspective, and it's different because it's a different culture altogether. While physically there's similarities aesthetically, it's not the same people at all. And the reason why I bring this up is because Reggie Jackson's half Puerto Rican, so I needed to throw that out there that
Yeah, no,
you can't completely claim Reggie Jackson.
The baseball racial draft.
Yep.
Right? This is what we got going on over here. The baseball racial draft. That's funny.
Where did he grow up?
He grew up in Oakland. He's from the Bay Area too.
Oh, well, see, that's the thing about it though. But there's a difference because that's also like with Marcus Stroman too, right? When he grew up in there's a difference.
His mama Puerto Rican. He Puerto Rican, bro.
It's true.
And the story.
It's true. But that's also why the conversation is so funny too, is because he doesn't mean that he's still not Black American, because you can still be Puerto Rican and still be Black American, and
yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, but that's just I had no idea about Reggie Jackson being half Puerto Rican. I had no idea.
Daniel can't wrap his head around that part, but
I didn't know. For me, with the glasses and everything,
I'm gonna throw another one out there. And Chris, because you're from New York, Bobby Bonilla, does he count as a black player or does he count as a Puerto Rican player?
He should
definitely
count as a Hispanic. No, I'm
Really?
playing.
What? Bobby Ball?
Yeah. No. Just because Bobby Bonilla, he gets paid $1 million every day till 2031. I think.
Good for him. He earned every dollar.
You know what?
God bless Bobby Bonilla. I'm just playing. I was just saying you guys can have him because we already Mets already got to pay him. So that's something black people want on their books. Then when we go up for free agency, then they put Bobby Bonilla on our backs.
I'll take him because I remember watching Bobby Bo with the Pirates. He was
the Pirates, but then when he went to the Mets, he forgot how to play baseball.
He went to the Dodgers. He was the Dodgers for a little bit. It was like
no. First time around, he was all right. I mean, whatever. I mean, whatever. Got it. It's just a matter of the elongated contract, but Steve Cohen said that they're going to actually make light of it and have a Bobby Bonilla day, and they're going to end up giving him a lump sum on the field one day. That's how they're going to settle it because the Wilpons are too cheap to handle that shit.
That was also funny how about those contracts. This is something else too that. Because people talk about you see the NBA draft is on television and the NFL draft, you see these players. Baseball draft are so long, was like in some dude in a room over a loudspeaker talking about who got picked. Because there's like there used to be like 100 rounds. So they're not. So when people also you get drafted in baseball, like in basketball, you see these paychecks, which in baseball the checks are guaranteed. First off, it's guaranteed money, and it's a lot. It used to be a hell of a lot more initially if you were like one of those top picks. So I also think that plays into what people think about like getting paid. If you're like young, you're like, man, okay, I want to make. You could be in the NBA at 19, at 20 years old.
Yeah.
With like a guaranteed check now. Baseball, unless you were great in college, which means that you probably have to go through these other things to even get to a good D1 school to be seen and get drafted. And then to be that high, or you could go out of high school, but who goes straight from high school to the major leagues? You're spending some time.
See, I was going to say,
rare.
You pretty much have to be a farmed child from Mexico or one of these Hispanic countries, like that they know, like because they got you from like 12, and they know exact. Like you're 16 now, okay, he's almost ready.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
Let's start teaching him English. Let's start teaching him English now. Like that's what
you know how that whole system works is they go around and they get kids from a certain age, and they put them in an academy where all they're doing is playing baseball all day. They're feeding them, they're getting 3 square meals, they're teaching them English, which doesn't seem to ever fucking work because all these Dominican guys get here and they still can't speak English for shit.
No,
that's why when I heard
they know they don't want you to know it.
They like to play the no speaking English card whenever it's convenient. But they're getting fed, and then to a certain age, I want to say 14 or 15, if they don't show some sort of talent, they cut you and they send you back to the village, and then those other kids keep going. But I guess it must be cheaper for baseball to do that, and because of just humane reasons, you can't do that here in the U.S. Well,
they have a baseball academy in Compton that they started. I was like, they got this had from the groundbreaking they had 2006 or 5. This always had it. It's been
something like that. Yeah, around
so
that time.
I mentioned earlier, like Jimmy Rollins was a part of some sort of project to try to get baseball in the inner city.
Dominic Smith played here.
Right.
If you're coming from like this Compton, Long Beach, it's not like Gardena area, you are going to play at this academy either for them at some point, or you're going to play against them. Like it's impossible to like not be a part of it.
It is like MLB hub for this area.
Official.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And but the funny part about it is that they can't do what they're doing in Dominican. I'm sure they wish they could.
I guarantee you they wish they could.
I mean, they might as well. I mean, really, you might as well just have one of those academies, like a boarding school for baseball.
I mean, they already do it for other sports under the books. I mean, I won't throw names out there, but the community college I went to, they were doing it for community college. They were recruiting players, which you're not supposed to do, in Florida. Fly them out here with their parents, whatever, setting them up with an apartment, hooking them up with rent, all this, whatever, cash under the table too, so they could play for this community college because it would be a hub for them to be recruited. And when when you have people getting recruited from your school, what does that mean? More funding, more everything else, and that more money in everyone else's in pockets. So I'm sure it's still going on for baseball too.
So this is an interesting tidbit here, but if you probably haven't been paying attention, but the amount of Puerto Rican players in the major leagues has dropped significantly, and I kind of brought it up earlier, and the reason behind that is, so they used to have the same type of academies in Puerto Rico, and then I want to say 15 years ago or 20 years ago, they changed it to where you had to draft Puerto Rican players and Canadian players instead of signing them to a free agent contract.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So because of that, they kind of pulled out a lot of the funding and academies they had there, because now they're basically an American player now, and it's going to cost more money to get a Puerto Rican player than
so what's the point?
Also, Dominican player is just way more cost efficient.
Right. Well, what happened was that they started putting more money into Venezuela. So then you had this there's a huge surge of Venezuelan
Okay.
players now that
Yeah.
wasn't before.
Is Acuna Venezuelan? I think Acuna is Venezuelan. I'm not sure.
I mean,
Well, anyway, keep going.
everybody's Venezuelan. I think there might be more Venezuelan than Dominicans now. There's
That's crazy.
I'm trying to like a lot of the pitchers. There's a lot of pitchers. I mean, Miguel Cabrera. I mean, that's an older guy now towards the end of the year, but Pablo Sandoval was one.
Wilson Ramos.
Uh,
Yeah, I seen that picture of them together, Miguel Cabrera and Wilson Ramos. Keep going.
half of the guys with the Tampa Bay are from Venezuela. Like the guys that were, not that Tampa Bay was. I mean, I don't want to talk about that, but there's been a huge surge from Venezuela that wasn't before, and it was because they kind of like, okay, well, we can't do the Puerto Rican, let's move. This is my theory. I don't know if anyone's going to admit to that, but it just makes sense that you see the decline. Because you still have Puerto Rican players, obviously. Like I mentioned, you got some stars in Lindor, Correa, Rosario.
That was the
And
same thing.
Kike? Kike Hernandez.
Oh yeah, Kike. Yeah. There you go.
And Edwin Rios for the Dodgers.
Well, those guys, because they wear Dodger blue, they're both sellouts to me. Even though they don't know it, they lost them. They might as well be Mexican in my book.
Nah. That's crazy.
I mean, there was a string of Cubans too for a while, like around the Puig time, that were coming out. Who was the one who went to the Diamondbacks, signed a huge contract out of Cuba? So I forgot what it was, and I don't know what he's.
I think his last name was Tomas, right?
Something.
Okay,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yosmani Tomas.
There you go. And I don't even know what happened to him, but like that, it was a string of just because it was like a Puig effect. I mean,
they didn't have to get defected.
You know,
at some point, they stopped having to get defected. That's why, because Obama opened up the floodgates, I guess.
it's true.
That's interesting too. Yeah, politics. Yeah.
I don't want to stereotype here, but it seems like the only hardworking Cuban baseball player is Cespedes, because the rest of the guys, they get some paychecks and they fall off a cliff after a year or two.
I mean, Puig
Puig
got COVID.
When you're stealing toilet paper and soap on these like international baseball tournaments, because like that's how bad it is back home, and then you get here to the States and someone's handing you millions of dollars, I could see why like there's this weight off your shoulders.
Hey man, I do that when I go to the hotel now. What is that supposed to mean?
But
What are you talking about?
it's because they got so many people to take care of too. My bad.
What happened? I'm. What do you say?
Nah, I was saying they got so many people to take care of. Like,
Oh, that's true too.
they just and then they got that guilt from being free, and then everybody else is stuck over there. So it's like it's kind of rough, like compared to other baseball players. I don't know.
Absolutely. It's a whole. I can't even imagine.
Well,
what's
what's the solution? What do you guys think is the solution? I mean, short term is not going to work. It has to be long term, from the foundation. But what is it? How do you make baseball? Here's a better question to start with. I think. How do you make baseball cool again? How do you make it fun again? How do you make it presentable? Do you prevent companies like Time Warner from signing these exclusive deals where you can't even watch baseball really? Because because that's good for the sport. You get these huge Mookie Betts style size contracts, which brings more attention and whatever that might be. You get to pay people more and build stack teams, whatever. I don't know what but it's like.
Well, and then what does Mookie Betts have to do? I feel like Mookie Betts right now should be the poster child for the move. Nothing against Dominic Smith, he's doing great, but a lot of people say Mookie Betts is, with him and Trout are the best players in baseball right now.
Well,
No,
I get the
and
impression.
he was also the only player in the World Series that was black.
Well, okay, so it's funny. It's funny you say that because there's a friend of mine. We played baseball together when we were 8 years old. That's the only season he ever played. We played together.
You and Mookie?
No,
Oh.
no, Mookie. Me and a good friend of mine. Like we're still
I was like, wait, what? You play with Mookie? What?
No. Mookie's like 28.
That's what I was like. Wait, what?
No, it was because I bought my boy's son a Mookie Betts T-shirt jersey. Because my homeboy is a Griffey fan. Like he played football growing up, but his baseball he loved Griffey. Like Griffey, even to this day, like you can't say anything to him about Griffey. Because Griffey had the shoes, Griffey had the swagger. I remember hearing LeBron James he talked about Griffey, like you just wanted to be Griffey. But part of that is because baseball put him out there, and he had a personality. And I think that someone like Mookie is interesting because he seems to love Los Angeles. I guess as soon as he got traded over, like he seemed to really enjoy this. Baseball needs to use him for that. Tim Anderson seems like somebody.
Hashtag Boston is racist. I mean,
oh yeah, well that's true too. But also someone like Tim Anderson. Like Tim Anderson is a great player to watch. And he's a player who I've heard him talk about. Like he's interested in being that person. Dominic. But baseball needs to just like the fact that Smith is out here doing this, like he created this himself. Why isn't baseball supporting that? Like with money and saying we're going to help, like we're going to make you guys true ambassadors in the way that the game has always had ambassadors, and we're going to support you like financially behind it too.
I followed him on Instagram today.
What
Major League
happened?
Baseball just followed Baseball Generations today.
They just followed y'all today.
Yeah.
And you said it started in 2016.
Yeah.
Then
oh my god.
Nah, and yeah, no, totally. And the other thing is just you gotta also remember Ken Griffey Jr. got thrown to the wayside because of Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire steroids. Like, I mean, I don't throw shade on anybody's greatness. I mean, whether it's with performance and whatever, but I'm saying that they threw Griffey out there until they had something bigger.
Better, yeah.
When they did that, they ruined the whole generation of black players that they could have been inheriting from the next generations. Because Griffey could have been the person that people watched and wanted to be like.
If only my theory is this actually, because it jumps
he
off.
got hurt.
Go ahead. Yeah, he
hurt.
did get hurt. That was the big thing because when he got hurt, he never really recovered, in my opinion.
But 97 to 2000, he was still hitting though.
Him on the Reds though he never reclaimed like a glory
They
year.
threw him to the wayside when the home run chase started. They first thought it was going to be Griffey that was going to be the one.
Because he almost did it in that strike shortened CC.
Yep.
And then 97, he had 56 home runs. So
Yep.
And then 98, once they seen McGuire and Sosa were going at it, they stopped publicizing Griffey. His injuries didn't start till 2002, because 2001 he still had a full season with the Reds.
Mm-hmm. Or even someone like Barry Bonds. If Barry Bonds was such an asshole, Barry Bonds, he's a. Honestly,
he could have been a voice for the sport.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. We forget Barry Bonds is black sometimes.
Which is so funny.
Barry Bonds is not a great ambassador for the black community. Like,
let me ask you something about that. Then why does Ken Griffey get a pass when he pretty much grew up similar to Barry Bonds? He's a second generation ball player. He grew up at the ballpark. He had a nice smile and he was a little bit friendlier. But
well, that's it. And
that's a big part of it.
and he embraced that 90s culture.
Yeah, you see, like Michael Jordan didn't have to do it because he was already representing what the black man could be.
That's actually my theory. I was gonna say. I think if Michael Jordan actually was good at baseball, he would have taken it. When he retired, quote unquote, and he went on to play minor leagues, and I'm actually joking, but actually kind of serious. If Michael Jordan was as good as he was at basketball as he, or whatever I'm trying to say, if he was good at baseball, I mean, the sky would have been the limit. You would have had people playing both sports just because you got to be like Mike, literally, to do both sports.
I still kind of feel like there's a certain year where it drops off a cliff, the amount of people playing, and it wasn't in the 90s. Because the kids, the black kids at my high school were still playing baseball and basketball and football. Like everybody was still out there playing. I played, in fact, when I was 21, I played in a like semi-pro Stan Musial league where there was a bunch of kids from Oakland that were playing with us and against us that were playing at the junior college level, and playing D2. A couple D1 players that were out there, and I feel like it was like mid 2000s or like early two.
Yeah, no, that definitely hits some right there. Well, basketball and football, right? The prep schools, they covered those sports heavy. Like I'm telling you that high school sports from the mid 2000s on, like MSG Network for New York, and I guarantee that Comcast or whatever channel does the LA stuff, they were definitely covering the high school basketball and football. So once that became a thing where even ESPN was doing high school basketball and high school football, that's definitely going to make people look at it like, damn, we need to spend more time on basketball. Like this is going like ESPN tournaments for high school kids. You know what I mean?
You know,
That definitely has,
I didn't think about that, and it was also like mid '90s when you started seeing the high school players going straight to the NBA
exactly.
after that not having been done for like 20 years, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you see it again. So you see all these guys, 19 years old, making bread. You know,
It doesn't
Kevin
matter if
Garnett,
you start out when you have to go through 5 years in the minor leagues. You know, if you're
right?
doing well, because I
Right.
mean, once you keep going.
No. That's a great point. I've never even considered that. Like I'm thinking, you see all these dudes that were my age or a little older than me going straight to the NBA, making bread. I mean, I remember guys like Sebastian Telfair who flamed out. You
Yeah, no,
know,
I went to Lincoln actually. That's crazy.
oh, he went to high school with him.
No, I went to high school with Lance Stevenson.
Mhm.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was up until LeBron. I don't know when they. I mean, it's still the same shit, but you know, the whole freshman like 1 year
1
in
year.
college. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see how that changes anything. But like whatever year was it the year after LeBron or 2 years after LeBron where they said you couldn't go straight to the NBA from high school anymore. You
But
know,
also
Yeah,
part of the
no,
reason,
it was 05, 05,
well,
06, something like that.
part of the reason why you have these players able to do this is because they had infrastructure for these kids when they were younger. So like LeBron got plucked out of Akron to go play for St. Vincent, which was like not. I don't even think St. Vincent was in the same state, as maybe it was, but that was like someone gave him some scholarship money, because they knew he was good at basketball and they knew that the lights would come. But this reminds me of, remember that Little League World Series with that Chicago team that from the South Side that
What,
went
Monet.
Monet?
no, it was a Chicago Little League team that went really deep in the World Series.
Is that the
They
one
might
Carl
have
Crawford funded?
even won it, but then it came out that they didn't play by the rules of the Little League in the sense where because Little League has divisions where you have to get players from certain areas or else you're in a different area. And I remember,
Right.
and so they were getting players from like in the same, like in the area, but it wasn't in that area that Little League said that they could do. And I remember it became an issue because they ended up stripping and get the title or something like that. It came in second. They did. This was like 10 years ago, something like that. But I remember the coach, the person who organized the team, was like, it's not easy for us to be able to get these players together. Like these white teams, they have all these resources and they have this broad area, but with black players, we don't have that, And the way that they came down on this team of like mostly black kids from Chicago that play well, made like, why would you want to get involved with Little League? This is part of the reason why you see Little League also these players being so like these white these white places doing so well. Because like again, like it is a systemic thing that baseball, if they want to address, they can address it.
Why people are not one to deal with the bullshit. Like if you're gonna sit there and play games with them and play all these extra rules and throw in all these extra little stipulations, they're just gonna say F baseball. Like we can go play basketball. I'd rather be a bench player in basketball than have to deal with all these politics.
And that's
like straight up.
And this is the 2014 team. They won the title in 2014, and part of it, you listen to that team, the person who put the team together, because I remember playing Little League too, because my brother was on a Little League team here, who actually in LA and Compton, who they didn't get past the regionals or anything, but we had to cobble of players. to do it, and they made it past like the first initial. Because there's so many different levels in Little
There's
League
so
to even
many,
get
yeah.
to like Williamsport.
Oh, there's
You
so
know,
many things, so many rounds, so many. Oh man,
but they got to like Mission Viejo, and that's where they end up losing. But Compton, 100,000 people, but like if you're from Compton, like you have to have players. They have smaller regions, and if you go out, you spread too far outside of that, you run into these violations.
yep.
And
I
now
get it too, yeah, because that's my dad for the last few years of his life. That's what he was doing. He coached and managed a few teams actually to San Bernardino, and I think even one or two of them beyond that. Whatever that is beyond that game. I don't know what it is. Northern Cal versus Southern California. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, but and it all stems back to what I was saying at the beginning. And I was joking about the whole like competitive nature of the sport and thing, because I was on a more serious level, and this is why I'm kind of tying it back together. I was noticing people doing travel ball already at that age. I mean, literally, it was to the point where I just didn't care enough to do that because it just felt like too much. And so again, that's just me. I'm a Mexican kid and not living in the in the inner city or whatever, like, and so I can't even imagine what it would be like for them to feel motivated. That's the big thing for me. It's like the motivation. What's motivating you to go and show up on the field? Because in high school, the baseball players, at least on campus, you got some girls who would like baseball player or whatever, but football or basketball, like that's what was getting attention of not just other girls or whoever, but the school itself and the parents, and those are the games that were going to be sold out and packed and over the intercom. It's Friday night's game. We go da 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 da. No, they weren't talking about the high school baseball team or whatever. So it's like I feel like of course this is just a sample size one of one. I don't know what other high schools are like, but you just what's the school putting the attention on? It's not really the sport of baseball. So if it's not really getting any attention, the only people signing up for it are the only ones who really quote unquote want it to begin with, and those are the people who can only afford it. So yeah, I mean, it all comes back to.
Well, to be fair, I learned this years ago, but high school baseball is meaningless. Scouts don't go to high school baseball games. They go to travel ball. So travel ball is kind of if your only outlet to get scouted was high school, then travel ball has kind of killed that to a certain extent, unless you're doing something so extraordinary in high school that they decide to come and see you. And it's one of those things where it's like the scout's like, I'm already going to see these guys with so and so, the Carson fucking Flapjacks or whatever,
who are playing against the best of the best in another region anyway.
So we're just seeing the best players to begin with. So what's the point in going out and spending the time to sit out there and watch quote unquote mediocre players? Because someone said
it's even like college baseball. A lot of these guys are playing in wood bat summer leagues. So like, how much scouting is actually going on at college baseball games? They're going to go to the Cape Cod League and watch them there. Or, I'm not too familiar with these college summer leagues, but they're going to go watch them there because they're using wood bats, because the ball comes off the bat differently.
That's the other thing too. Yeah. Having to, like, I love my aluminum bat, but then you get old enough and you're like, oh wait, we're using bats that are like a million times more expensive than a wooden bat. And then B, like you're not going to hit the ball the same. Like I can hit a home run with an aluminum bat. Like,
There was like a few years here where Easton and whoever would come out with these bats where it was basically, as long as you hit it in the air, it was gone. You know what I mean? And it was like,
I remember because they were getting banned. They were getting banned. They would ban them in the leagues.
Ban them because
the barrel was too big. Like you'd have a fucking huge 17-inch barrel.
Super light too. I remember for a while.
12 ounces.
Them bats fly out your hands, by the way.
Yeah, because you swing it so hard, like this impossible.
Todd Frazier let the bat fly out of his hand way too many times in the last couple of years. These guys, they're all teams gonna take one time, man.
Well, let me. Baseball in general you know, not just in the black community, but in general, the popularity of it has gone down. Aside from, regionally, like if your team does good, then all of a sudden regionally we'll go and tune into the
Yeah,
games. But
lifer. Yeah.
how do you make the game fun again for everybody? Like make it cool again for everybody, where it's not just an elitist sport, but you know, like I know a lot of people are like you're starting to see more bat flips and more celebrations. Baseball was always kind of a gentleman's game, and if you broke the code, that you'd expect to get drilled between the numbers, and we're starting to see that go away a little bit.
You gotta, you
But
gotta, you gotta have. I'm sorry. You gotta have baseball. You gotta have celebrities. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the one thing that LeBron is a celebrity.
right,
Like somebody at OBJ, he's a celebrity. Like these guys, I mean, at the end of the day, like if there's a Mike Trout or I mean, Derek Jeter was a celebrity.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that is something that kept baseball afloat for a while. When he left the game, there wasn't a player that picked it up. And it's something we haven't even realized, like because it's baseball is so irrelevant to the public psyche that like Derek Jeter retiring was just like regular to people. Like if you weren't like a baseball person or a Yankee fan or whatever, you said yeah, tip your cap, but it's like life goes on. Like it's not like when Michael Jordan retired, you were
Or
like
Kobe.
damn.
Kobe, yeah, everyone was talking
Or
about Kobe.
Kobe retired around the same time as Derek Jeter.
It's true. It's true.
And they both had some pretty cool last games too, though. I can't lie. Derek Jeter with the walk off in the last game.
No.
I mean,
I gotta run downstairs real quick. I'll be right back.
okay.
Yeah, but no, that's true because I think about Matt Kemp. Like when Matt Kemp at one point was dating Rihanna, and people knew him. Like I remember talking to someone, they were like, "Who is he?" I said, "He's center field for the Dodgers," but they didn't know. No, they knew him from dating Rihanna. Rihanna also, that was like he hit like 300 the year before, and he started dating her, hit 250. Then he broke up.
Killed
and he
his
became
career.
a MVP candidate.
She broke his back. She broke his back. Broke his hips.
That's better than the World Series ring. Yeah.
That he didn't get. He was a year too late. He could have got it last year. I mean, so Mookie could be that guy, though. I really think. I mean, he has the money. He has the money right now. I mean, because I thought like potentially Giancarlo Stanton might be that guy. But he's always injured, so he can't even be in the spotlight because he's not even healthy. I mean, so Puig, you have all these great players. They don't speak English too, so it's like. And Gian would weigh in on this too. It's like a UFC problem too, that we see because UFC is a huge like international sport all over, but a lot of people don't speak fluent, and so when they're on the mic, the guy might have just decked the guy and destroyed him and knocked him out flat, and you put the mic, I won the fight, and you're like, yeah, but how do you market that? You really can't, other than like Khabib he blew up because of like Conor McGregor. And this is just a little sidebar here, but it's just like he's not great on the mic, but Conor was, right? Conor was able to, because he's so great on the mic, generate the hype and generate the viral clips and all this through talking shit and everything. And he got the Floyd Mayweather fight. It made even more money. Obviously, it's fighting. It's a different sport entirely, but that's kind of missing the spiciness. The only spiciness that I could think of coming out of baseball is like Bryce Harper wearing a MAGA hat, like, and that's not. But you know what I mean, though. It's like I mean, this was when 2016 when he was like Bryce Harper was supporting the Trump stuff. But I'm just saying, like that's spicy. Those are spicy comments when people are saying these people shouldn't be doing bat flips and stuff. Like that's what's spicy, and it's like, but what? That's kind of why baseball, I feel like, does kind of get paused because they don't embrace what people like. And just like in football, people love that celebration. Go ahead.
Nah, they don't embrace popular culture.
Yeah, and that's a huge factor for all of this stuff because it's what goes viral. It's what goes. I mean, the home run is great. That's a huge marketing tool. But in the day of the internet, you need more than a home run blast. Because I don't know what the Dodgers retweets are for like a home run, or like MLB tweets out a home run. That's cool, but there has to be more to the sport, and there really isn't more to the sport. That is the sport, but it's just
Well, that is.
You know what? It also doesn't help when the guy celebrating the most is fucking preppy ass Cody Bellinger. Looks like he's straight out of fucking Malibu.
People love Cody.
Stoned.
Even people who
he looks so
people who
stoned
don't
all
play,
the time.
That's why they like everybody. That's why people love Cody. I have friends who aren't big baseball fans, but they like. But Cody's always he's a damn meme. But what you're saying about the internet is also true, because basketball really had it got more popular the last 5 or 6 years, and a lot of us say that's because of Vine.
Vine.
They
Okay.
say that's because
highlights.
Vine, because
highlights.
And you could tweet that on Twitter, and base in the NBA did not stop people from doing that. The NFL told teams that they couldn't even show highlights on Twitter, but the NBA just let people go like, do you want to show this clip? Do it, So then you can have this like people just retweeting and just sharing these little 6-second clips, and that's what you need in base. Like imagine like you have Mookie coming back and robbing a home run.
Those plays, they got enough footage to this playoffs to do that too. I mean, those jumping catches, the home plate stealing, like things that you could just look at and you're like, oh, athletic wise, that's great. I don't understand the sport, but
like they're so counterproductive. Like Major League Baseball, like they'll go out of their way. Like for me, like I don't have credentials. Like to be honest, like I'll go up game and I'll find a way to get in there, and
as you should. Like, that's the way to do it.
I have the lens, like the bigger lens, like because I don't want to like always ask my friends to get me in the games or to get me in this, because sometimes I'll just whatever. But basically they want like just people with credentials to be putting up pictures or taking pictures at the games. That's ridiculous. Like you have a whole base of people that could be taking pictures at your game and sharing about what's going on at the games, and you want to keep it to camera phones.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, when I go, I used to be able to take in a longer lens, and now I'm restricted to a shorter lens, and it's like, well,
exactly.
I had no idea that was a thing.
Me neither. Me neither.
Yeah, and it's just they say, I've been told different reasons. Yeah, you got to bring your clear backpack that you can like fit one like battery inside of, because it's like this big.
You're so stupid too, because every ballpark I've been to lets you bring in anything you want except booze. So
yeah, like, bro, you can bring in food all you want.
Yeah, like I remember going to Candlestick. We'd come in with a big ass sandwiches from Safeway and soda and everything.
But that's also another issue to baseball, because the ticket prices have been rising, and so it's been harder. Because I remember less than 6 years ago, you go to Dodger Stadium, I would go to StubHub. Get tickets for like $6, $5. It's top deck, but I like the top deck because I can see the whole field.
Yep.
And
yeah, you keep telling yourself that, Aaron.
No, it's the truth.
That's where I go.
I'll take the cheapest seat and I'll go sneak my way down there. So
yeah, it's hard at Dodger Stadium because they always have people at every level checking your tickets.
They'll treat you like a criminal.
I remember going to, because I also lived in Atlanta.
Especially.
Hey,
I remember going to a Braves game.
Only stadium I've ever been kicked out of was Angel Stadium, so it doesn't get worse than Angel Stadium.
They're so boring. They're so boring. Yeah. In Anaheim,
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. The new Yankee Stadium charges $150 to sit in top deck. Like that's a premium ticket at Yankee Stadium. At the new Yankee Stadium.
Really, it's a great experience if you get comped. Like if you get comped like for food and everything, like they have a buffet and everything. Like you go,
yeah.
Like it's insane. Like,
I did it a few years ago.
If you're not like taken care of, like that shit is.
The irony of my hate for the Dodgers is that the best experiences I've had at baseball games was at Dodger Stadium, because my cousin, Honda was my cousin's client for his advertising company. So we were the Honda reps at the games, and they put us up. We went opening day, I want to say 2011, and because we were Honda, they took us to every single important person. I met Frank McCourt.
Did you punch him in the face?
No, I loved him because he was ruining the Dodgers.
Oh man,
They took us into a booth. We met Fernando in the Spanish at the Spanish radio station.
That's
They
great.
took us to meet. They took us to meet Tommy Lasorda with our Giants gear on. He did not want to take a picture with us. They forced him to take,
Tommy!
no. They forced him to take a fucking picture with us with the
That's
Giants
what's
jersey
up.
on. He was not happy about it. It was hilarious.
Tommy's like,
It was
fuck the
awesome.
Giants.
My favorite Jackie Robinson story was the Dodgers traded him to the Giants at the end of his
And he
career.
retired.
He retired. Yeah, he wasn't going to do that, you know? I was like, yes.
They don't make it like that no more. You know, you can blame another Oakland Cap for that. Kurt
Well, it's
Flood,
funny.
his fault.
It's funny because the Marlins just hired Kim Dung as their GM. She was a Dodgers assistant GM before they hired Ned Coletti, and I hated the Coletti deal because he came from the Giants, and I was like, and I knew she was underneath Dan Evans. I was like, she's perfect. She's ready for the job. But Frank McCourt, when they hired his damn Giant, I don't think Ned was that great of a GM. But that's just me. Some other Dodgers fans, he wasn't bad as Paul DePodesta, who was trash. But yeah, I'm going baseball.
Well,
Yeah,
we got what's his name? With what's his name?
Friedman.
The second baseman. No. The black kid. I don't know why I could see his face. Gordon. D. Gordon.
D. Gordon?
Yeah.
Oh, my grandmother loved D. Gordon. She was a black woman. Grew up watching baseball. D. Gordon was like her favorite Dodger for a long time.
I know a lot of people like D. Gordon. A lot of people.
I was saying trade him.
D. Gordon don't count either. D. Gordon was another second generation ball player. He was privileged.
He is second generation. You're right. Yeah. You're right. You know?
I guess that's true.
But yeah.
That is true. I guess it doesn't. Well, I mean, but see, there you go. He gets disqualified, and the 7%, and then how many are getting disqualified?
Dude, think about the disrespect in the NBA that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson get because their dads were in the NBA. Like people hold it against them like crazy, even though they're.
I was gonna say who.
All the rest of the other NBA players.
I think his shot is valid for his own sake. Like he's like,
yeah, because they are both ballers.
like what is it? Whatever his name is, Del Curry is like, he's Steph Curry. Steph Curry is his father, like or Del Curry. You know what I mean? How it would be like, oh, that's my son. Like Steph Curry, that's his son.
Yeah.
So like it wouldn't even be that. Like he took his father's name to a whole new height.
Oh yeah, Del Curry was nobody. Michael
Thompson
was nobody.
Michael Thompson, they weren't nobody. Michael Thompson was like a top 5 pick. You know, when he came out of college.
Top 5 pick who retired averaging 6 points a game and 5 boards, bro. I mean,
plus
he was a flop. He was a bust.
No, unless you live in the West Coast.
Yeah, he for real. He's like a West Coaster.
Michael Thompson, like I've heard the name, but like Michael Thompson is like, Clay did the same thing then.
Well, yeah, because I know Michael Thompson because he played for the Lakers and he's on talk radio out here, and he is such a homer. It is so funny. Like he says everything's pro Lakers. You know, it's just like, man, okay, chill out, dog. Like it ain't sound like that. You know,
it's crazy. His son didn't end up becoming a Laker.
Oh, he said that because people talk about this stuff, but he can't tamper because he's part of the Lakers organization. You know, but he says that he always hopes that his son has a great game against the Lakers, but they lose. You know, and so and people have always been hoping that he would like somehow pull Clay, like, you know, but I guess he.
That
never
sounds like
now.
me with my fantasy when I play fantasy, and I have not now because there's no one on the Giants, but you know.
Are you guys?
Let me tell you something. Nobody ruins my DraftKings lineup more than the Dodger does. Every time I pick a Dodger in my DraftKings lineup.
Let me tell y'all. I won $10,000 on FanDuel off a $9 bet this year.
Are you serious?
Wow. So crazy.
Congrats. On baseball?
Baseball, yeah. Wow. It was so crazy.
See, I don't do the daily.
And you know who helped me the most? Gratterall. He struck out freaking Tatis and Machado in the 9th inning when I was winning. I was up. I won this thing by like 15 points.
Oh my! That's a lot.
See, I don't know.
Yeah,
a lot in baseball.
that thing is hella competitive. Hella, and off of one entry, it was crazy. Yo, I put at least $3,000 back in there off trying to win. I was like,
That's what you have to do.
20 lineups, bro. I was like trying, and all I had to do was put that money in the market, man. Oh man.
That is what you have to do. Yeah, you up 10. Yeah,
Oh,
let's
put
more
all
credit.
that money in the
By the way,
market, man.
I want
Put that
to
money
throw
in the
this
market.
out there. This is like 10 minutes late, but as I was walking down to take the stuff to my buddy, I heard Daniel mention Giancarlo Stanton. Once again, Giancarlo Stanton is half Puerto Rican. His dad is white. All right.
Well, there you go, side busting on a conversation you didn't even know what we were talking about. But go ahead, proceed.
I'm just saying. I just wanted to qualify out there that his name was Mike Stanton Jr. and then he changed it to Giancarlo Stanton. Like,
well, his name was always John Carlo. He just wanted people to call him that again, because he said his mom. But he's from LA.
He wanted to let people know
LA,
he was Puerto Rican, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well,
I'm just saying that he had a big contract and he's been injured for most of it, and he could be. People with these big contracts have the opportunity to make the most splashes, I think, in the MLB in terms of like being a face.
What?
And when you have Mike Trout, who just wants to go home at the end of the day with his wife and kids and ride horses and whatever, it's like what are you gonna get other than
what's funny is that
play hard?
There's a huge correlation between players signing big contracts and falling off. Like Mike Stanton is the exception, not the rule. Like even Bryce Harper right now, he's kind of I know.
I won't say Bryce Harper fell off. I'll say Bryce Harper is really still probably top 20 talents in the game. Like he's really good.
I would say even top 10.
Yeah, me too. Maybe his numbers, because like we look at that 1 year that he had where he was just like ridiculously like all-time great season. Yeah, all-time great season. And then he's had like some really good seasons. But that all-time great season is like, oh, I can't do that because that's like no one does that
except for Mike Trout.
But the thing is that
Harper is like
high pedestal that when he has a season that is way above average to the other major league players, like it's considered down.
Well, he's also got a bad rep. People think he's an asshole, so people are rooting against him. So if he has a season that, but he did that to himself as well. You know what I mean?
Yep, he definitely is an asshole.
I mean,
any place for the Phillies, well, I don't have any respect or love for him. So.
The Mets coming out, huh?
I am a Mets homer. I don't give a shit. Like, whatever I do. These guys could put up my pictures way more than the Mets, and I would still hate their guts.
But that's also something that I think that you find in baseball, because baseball is extremely regional sport, and you just have these legacy. Like there's no way I would ever not be a Dodgers fan. Even when I boycotted them in 2000, might have been 2000, it must have been 2006 or 7, because I hated Paulie. I hated that they let Beltray walk. It just upset me
after
to no end.
MVP season.
After that year,
49 runs or whatever it was.
He was one of
he had 50 more.
He was the 48. I want to say he had 48 that year.
Yeah,
he was smashing.
He was one of the kids that they farmed. They signed him right at 16. he had all kinds. Came up to the Dodgers young, at like 20 years old. He had that stupid appendix surgery for no reason when he could have just done it at Sears Society. Now he decided to do it in Dominican and hurt him for like a year and a half. But that all this thing, then you just let this dude walk. Get out of here.
Well, okay. In Paul DePodesta's defense, and I'm not a sabermetrics guy at all. In his defense, Adrian Beltre was straight fucking trash until that 1 year.
Yep.
And then after that year,
he wasn't trash.
He was a legit serviceable player the rest of his career. But I feel like that was steroids.
Part of it was because he had a good year, and then he had that surgery. He had some surgery that almost killed him. Because it was a botch.
Also could have been steroids, because Paul LaDuca was doing steroids at that time, and they were playing together. So And that
Yeah, but-
and he's my number one example.
Lenny Dykstra with that
Hey,
shit.
I don't.
I love Paulie.
I don't want to be this. I don't want to be this guy, that guy. But if everybody is doing steroids, then nobody's doing steroids.
Well, that-
okay?
That's
Well,
that's a
you know,
fact.
except for
And
Chipper
that should be
Jones. You know,
said- that
Chip.
should be said into the Hall of Fame. That should be, and Pete Rose should go right with it.
well, that's
Absolutely.
what I just saw this comment on this. I told you I'm watching Barry Bonds home run videos on YouTube just randomly, and someone's like, okay, he decided to take steroids in '99, so he decided to just level the playing field, and you see how great he was. like, so how
The
great
guy
was
already
he
hit 480 home runs without steroids.
without steroids? And so and he
stealing
he was playing
bases.
while playing at a disadvantage because he wasn't on it when everybody else was. And then he decides to do it, and he's just he's a god at that point.
White people
You know, at
again,
30,
huh?
34.
White people again. Just putting the
hate what he
steroids
do.
in there and knowing that the black people would just suffer as a result. No more limelight. We'll just give all the white players steroids.
My favorite steroid player of all time is Brett Boone, because that
Oh,
dude
he got so big.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was
dude.
terrible on the Reds
He
in
was.
99, 98.
He was.
And then all of a sudden he goes to the Mariners in 2001.
And yo,
Hits bomb. Him, Brady Anderson is another one. Hit 54 home runs in 1990.
yes. Oh, center field. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true.
10 yards.
Just all of a sudden, it's like, where did this stroke come from? What is this?
David McGee. Freaking Juan Gonzalez.
Juan gone. Juan gone was always a big dude, though. You know.
Yeah.
They
They call him Igor in Puerto Rico because he was so huge. You know, that's, like,
These guys are like WWF guys, though. Like,
they are. They're massive.
WWF steroid guys. Like, these guys were really like that.
It's funny because again, you watch these older clips like Bobby Bowe with the Pirates or Barry, and they're slender guys, and you see this now. You know, still like you have someone like Stanton who's just like a yoked guy, but for the most part, a lot of these big home run hitters are not necessarily like big massive guys. I'm thinking of like Bellinger. Who am I missing?
I mean, even just going to keeping the Dodgers, Cody this year. What's his name? Who had 16 as well? The other guy. I don't know. I'm blanking on his name. Pollock. Yeah. I mean, Mookie.
Oh, no.
I mean, everyone in that goddamn lineup could hit it out if they needed to.
But three snaps.
But they're
60
small
games,
though.
Aaron. 60 games. All right. There's not going to be an asterisk next to it. There's going to be this tiny little 6-0 next to the championship.
Hey, at least it didn't be accompanied by garbage can. So
I'm saying
that didn't help baseball's look either. I mean, especially the way they handled that stuff too, because
punish anybody.
we're talking about African Americans.
Coronavirus, by the way, they got saved by coronavirus. If the Astros had to play a whole season with fans, man, that was a fucking bitch. Oh man,
it would have been great. I would have wished.
I'm sorry.
And the funny,
I'm sorry, you got to beat that out. I'm sorry, the choker end now, but it just, oh man,
I would have been so good. It would have been so.
Well,
sorry, my language.
The funny thing is people think it's gonna go away. Like if fans can come back this year, they think that they're not gonna clown on the Astros, because But I mean, because that didn't help. Because I mean, like for example, Jose Altuve, right? We're talking about African Americans here. Obviously, Jose is not one of them, but he is a person of color, so he is someone that you could look out and root for. Well, then what goes to Gion's point earlier about what he was talking about, but he was marketable too. He was very like I saw a lot of ads for him, with the sledgehammer, and I'm the short little guy, and I'm gonna work extra hard to earn my way and this and that. I remember seeing these ads for it, and now he's a cheater, right? 100% a part of this, and so it literally for me, I can't speak for everybody, destroyed how I cannot look at him as the player he was all those years, regardless of when that cheating started. So it did taint things too, because it's like, I don't know, it's not good for the look of the sport, especially when the commissioner.
And I get what you're saying. It's like once it seems like baseball is starting to gain a little bit of leverage back, like something like that happens and just ruins it all. I mean, whatever they were doing to cheat. I mean, you notice most of the league, some teams, actually No, there was like 2 teams that were talking shit, and everybody else was just zipped up and not saying shit. Because I personally think everybody was fucking doing it, in one way or another, except for maybe a handful of teams, and that's why no one was saying shit, and that's why only like a couple people got in trouble because it was like if we go too deep,
They didn't want it to get
this whole league is gonna get fucked up. You know what I mean?
They had crazy emails for the Yankees that were supposed to pop up in the summer and just went away.
Well, it makes sense. The
fired.
Yankees are the biggest brand in the world. Like
Yeah.
that Yankee cap is known in any country.
Yep.
Even if they don't watch baseball.
Even if they don't even know what baseball is, they know what a Yankee is.
So know the Mets better. No,
yeah. Right. Oh.
But speaking of the Mets, I mean, just a sidebar here. Did you read that book about the '86 Mets? That it came out with all the dirt about Dykstra, about how it talked about how like Strawberry tried to punk Kevin Mitchell in the minor leagues and didn't realize that Kevin Mitchell was the hoodest of hood, and Kevin Mitchell almost murdered Darryl Strawberry after a pickup basketball game because he didn't know who he was messing with. And then when they called him up that season, like Darryl was not happy because it was like, oh shit, because Darryl was like doing all kinds of
Crenshaw.
What's that?
Darryl Strawberry from Crenshaw.
No, I know.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, he was protected and kind of soft compared to Mitch. Mm-hmm. Mitch had the faceless gold teeth, teeth, and the Jerry curl.
He was a big dude too.
Yeah.
He was barely, when he went up and got a base hit in Game 6 of the World Series. He was barely even dressed. Like he just came. He was about to go in the shower, and they're like, "Yo, go pinch hit." Not dressed. He's like, "Yeah, I'm throwing my clothes. I'm gonna go hit." And they got a base hit.
I love these baseball stories, like because that's the only sport that happens in.
Yep.
You have these stories about people
coming. You can't do that in basketball, man. You can't be in the locker room. Oh, damn! Go back out. Play 4 or 5 minutes. All right, yeah, you're gonna hit 3 3-pointers and get us back in the game. That's what happens. That don't happen. Football. You don't see no running back coming from the locker room and then run for the touchdown in the end zone and the game, or a wide receiver or whatever. So
the name of the book is The Bad Guys Won.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know. I think I know the author or something like that.
I think there were stories in there where like Strawberry was like calling girls into the into the dugout from the stands and hooking up with them in between innings, and then
Strawberry was living his life, huh?
Yeah.
It sounds like you need more of that in the game, and then you might have
that's
more
the
people
thing, like
playing.
Aaron said, like this kind of stuff doesn't happen in any other sport, but nobody people should know about this. Like, how do you make this out there but make it cool? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
totally.
Because it's so funny that baseball has this connotation of being such a square sport, but then you think about all these stories you hear about from the 70s and the 80s and how crazy shit was. Like Doc Ellis pitching a no-hitter on LSD.
David Wells doing it hungover.
Yeah,
in the 90s, and I remember seeing some clip he was talking about because he said he went to a SNL cast party because he didn't know that he was pitching the next day, or they changed their rotation, and so he gets to the he's not supposed to pitch, so he's like not thinking about it. He gets there you're on the mound today. He's like, what? I just had a night with Strawberry, and then with the cast of SNL. And then she throws his no hitter or whatever, and then the interview was
a perfect game, wasn't it? I think it was a perfect game. I think David Wells threw a perfect game.
And then did throw a perfect game against the Twins, 98.
And then they came, and then he said, this guy said, "So what did you do to celebrate?" He was like, "Well, because," and that's baseball. You're in these cities for 3 nights too when you travel, at least 2.
I'm starting to see a common thread here. Doc Ellis was also from LA. So something about these LA ball players getting in trouble, bro.
Well, that's you mentioned Eric. You mentioned Eric. Yeah, we be out here.
Baseball and get high at the same time. I mean, I'm kidding, but still.
You mentioned Eric Davis. Eric Davis got into trouble with the Dodgers for throwing fireworks at Dodger Stadium or something like that. Some silly.
That sounds very LA. That sounds like he belongs here. What are you talking about? He fits right in.
Because he's from LA.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
These baseball stories. Again, like I agree. Like baseball has these personalities. They have these people, but I don't think they do a good job putting them out there. They don't have enough video games. They only really have one real video game, and that's the show. It's only on PlayStation.
It's only on PlayStation. Yep.
And so, like, you gotta get into these different markets. Because I used to buy the baseball games. That's how you know the roster, especially back in the 90s.
Right.
When you were on the internet, you buy the games. They have all the rosters, so you playing against these teams in the season, and you know these players.
Yep.
But or I used to love World Series was my favorite. Or that was Genesis, Sega Saturn.
But it goes through all the things too. Because when I was a little kid, I was playing backyard baseball before I even got into like the triple plays or the console games. And literally starting small, just learning the fundamentals of like, it's just and maybe because just people aren't spending money on it. I mean, really, I don't know. It's weird because the Dodgers are still worth however many billions of dollars that their contract was. So it's not like the money's not there. It's not like their games are selling out, whether it's Giants or us, or I mean, maybe not like Tampa Bay or something, but it's
well, I mean, there's your regional the region. Oh, it's all good. This when we do these internet conferences, it's hard because there's a delay. So no worries, brother. The Dodgers have that. I mean, you guys are born and raised in LA, so the Dodgers are arguably as big, if not bigger, than the Lakers. Like that's.
I would say that. It's the Lakers. It's the Lakers now, and the Dodgers are just Dodgers fans they love them, but the Lakers are like a different
because
elite.
LeBron is on the team right now, so you can't even.
Even before that, the Dodgers were bad for so long. Like they weren't terrible.
It's because they don't have any championships. That's why
they weren't good enough to overtake the Lakers. Like
it was the Piazza deal. That Piazza deal pissed that Piazza trade pissed off a lot of Dodgers fans. Like a lot of like people say like that's because the Lakers were not very good in '98.
How does Mark give us my Piazza? Because y'all Dodgers from Brooklyn.
Oh, I love Piazza.
I became a Met fan because of Mike Piazza, and I would have never been a Met fan if the Dodgers were in Brooklyn. So it's only right. God did all this for a reason. In a weird way, Mike Piazza had the Mets in exchange for the Brooklyn Dodgers to go in 56, 57.
But it fucked the Dodgers fans in LA. And then the Lakers started winning championships right after that, like in 2000. And then the Dodgers went through that like nadir where they just were like mediocre.
And then until
Gagne was
up until Gagne.
Well, yeah, Gagne. Oh, that was a whole nother. But even then, the Dodgers weren't going to the playoffs. Like they were never
just him. It was just him. People were watching him. Like
I like Sheffield. I used to hate fucking Sean Green though. He was so boring to watch.
Sean Green is the worst thing going.
Oh yeah, you with the Mets too. I forget. Oh, she was goddamn. Sean Green was pissing me off.
He's still a boring player. For somebody hit 4 home runs in a game, oh man.
You would think that he just got walked the way he's trying to run the bases. On the fourth home run.
Sean Green hit the quietest 40 home runs ever. Like, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
He had a string of seasons where he hit like 30, 40 home runs.
He was a slugger.
And it was so quiet. Like, nobody, they were just mad that he wouldn't play on Rosh Hashanah or whatever. Like, or he would take Yom Kippur off.
Yom Kippur. It didn't matter. It mattered for us, the Dodgers, a little because we were in the playoff contention then.
What is good with their luck with Jewish players with that? They had Sandy Koufax and then they had Sean Green with
Mhm.
Well, one's a
Well,
Hall of Famer and the other one's not. So I
One is Sandy Koufax, the other one is not.
yeah, no, I think baseball has an opportunity, but they have to like baseball is thriving on YouTube, and because there are people like us who are getting together and just talking about baseball, and there's so many of these YouTube and some of these YouTube personalities have like
those
bubbled
funny
up
videos,
into
those funny talking shit videos are hilarious. Like Carlos will send me,
Nature.
or you will send me sometimes, or the guy who's like breaking down the
John Boy.
Dodger. Yeah, like
SB Nation.
those are hilarious.
and you have like baseball bits. You know, you have like Stark Raven Sports. Well, it's like they have like these longer, like 10-minute videos.
Within the last 2 years, because prior that was not going on.
Well,
I was literally
yeah.
sitting here like, wow, there's not really any YouTube videos like that guy, that Mike Korzemba guy who does the basketball. Those kind of videos for basketball.
There are.
They have 100 million. They don't have conspiracy baseball theory videos and all this. They don't have it, and literally, baseball is rich with those stories.
They have all these stories.
Well, that's because the conspiracy actually became true with the Astros, with the trash can thing. Because I mean,
nailed that down.
But that's what really broke that story to the national level, because John Boy had that video where he's like bang, he's like bang, he puts bang on the screen when they're banging on the goddamn trash can.
Lights out. It was over.
You know?
Everyone saw it. There was no question about it. I mean, you can get it from the audio files, which to me as a sound guy, I'm like, you can't even argue with that now. Like, try to argue with it. It was not fucking how it was. Like,
that's crazy. Oh, so fucking crazy. But baseball has a choice. Like, no. What are you gonna say? It's all good.
I was like, how much time we have?
Oh, I mean, we've already gone. We're almost at 2 hours now, so we could wrap it. We could call it.
Yeah, well, let's just put final thoughts on it. Let's put the final spin on it.
Yeah.
Solution. So hope, positive. Let's think. So, do you think that baseball will remain the same for the next few years? Which is fine, because to be honest, baseball is still alive. You know, it as a sport. You know, maybe not for like the African American community, but you know, who knows? Maybe that could be a pendulum that swings back and forth, and maybe it's the time for it to go this way.
I think that, you know, it's going to take a generation before we see anything change at all. And I think programs like the BBG, like Chris is telling us, that's great, especially Southern California, Los Angeles is such a hotbed for athletics in general, you know, because of the weather. Obviously, you can play every sport all year round. So I think that's a good start. And I hope that bigger profile players are out there and getting out there, and not just in the Black community, but also like in the Latino community as well. You know, because we see a lot of, you know, of I don't know. I grew up and most of the guys playing baseball were Mexican, you know, but you don't really see too many Mexicans in the major league. So you know, maybe something like that as well to try to really get people of color back into the game, American people of color back into the game, I should say. And you know, we got to start somewhere. You know, start Giancarlo Stanton, you know, or Evan Longoria, for example. I mean, he's technically Mexican, right?
Well, the two rookie of the years were black this year, Devin Williams and Kyle Lewis. You know, and so you have some of these players. I know the Angels have this young guy. They have a couple of, like, what's his name? Yeah, you know. And so they're players out there, but baseball needs to invest. It's not just like you can't follow the BBG Instagram like yesterday. They need to follow it, and then they need to push it. They need to put money behind it. You know, they need to say, hey, why don't you have this in like one of our major stadiums? You know, and then invite people who don't normally come to baseball games necessarily. You know,
yeah,
it's like those.
On MLB Network a bunch of times. You can keep going, but I was just saying we were just on there this week. You know, that's another thing I put up on the page is that, you know, they were doing an interview, whatever. And then MLB Network has been great with that. Keep going.
Yeah, but that's how if you want to get specifically black players in, It helps. Black people like to see a pathway, and if you have someone like Smith coming back and saying this is the pathway, this is the path that I took, like it's possible, that goes a long way. But baseball needs to get behind him and make it worth. Like he should be traveling to do these things. He shouldn't have to pay for it himself. That's what I'm saying. Put the money in. Give people baseball gloves. Even at Morehouse, my first year, like we didn't have that many money. I remember Spike Lee, because he's a baseball fan. He bought the team baseball gloves and bats, and he got us a deal with Nike, to get cleats, And so again, that's because it takes those things, and they have the money. Baseball has the money. You just got to spend it wisely.
And I mean, yeah, and because I think it has to do with finances, with the path too. Just my final thought is, because this is a few years ago, I was asked if I would film people's videos, and like how much the rate I would charge to go to people's games, not scout them, because obviously I'm not a scout, but just take my equipment, film them, different angles, different whatever, and like I'm like, and they asked like what would my rate be, and at the time I had no idea, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then they were telling me, well, 1,500 is usually the da-da-da. And I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, this sounds amazing, obviously, like to watch them play baseball and to film it. But I found out since then that it varies. You can be 500, but up to that point, depending on where it is. I ended up not doing any of these videos, but people are spending all this money on the camps we already talked about. We'd already talked about all of this stuff. Not even talking about the schools they might have to get into and stuff like that, and the travel to get to some of these places, blah blah blah. But to put together a little video to send to these schools potentially, because maybe they're not getting scouted, so they want to at least throw a reel out there. I mean, that's a lot of money too. It's just you got to update that too. So I mean, I think technology is getting better though, and I'm just hoping. I really do hope that social media can bring out some stars somehow. I mean, to cut through this stuff, I don't know how you do that, but it's happened in boxing, it's happened in the fight world. I don't know about other sports, but I think it's a possibility. Why not? It's out there. It's a tool, and phones and stuff are getting better. We're now entering the generation where I feel like everyone's learning how to edit and to shoot things, because the phones are just making it so easy to just do it. And even if people don't realize it, because they're on Instagram, they're editing, they're doing all these things already, they're putting these things together. And so as a filmmaker, I'm like, I hope that potentially these people who are growing up with things that I didn't grow up with, maybe they started to record themselves when they were 12 just because they could, and now they're 17, they're actually pretty good, and they have 5 years worth of stuff they've recorded themselves because they're just for the Vine, for the whatever, and they have a personality, they have a following, they have a Cody Bellinger type thing. Because Cody's on the new he's in the new Assassin's Creed game, and he's a character in that game, the Valhalla game, and it's like he got that way to some point, right? And it's not exactly his playing ability, because even though I don't really care for Cody that much, but but he got popular, and it's not just because he's white, and it's social media. I think all those things. They're on Jimmy Kimmel, and all these things help, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
And if you want
Chris,
me to,
final thoughts?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, as far as one thing that we didn't speak on was also climate. Like, Florida, Texas, California, those places, they have, mostly, warm weather throughout the year, or at least doable weather. When you're in New York, you're looking at like 30, 40, 50 degrees, 60, 70% of the year. So that's another thing. It's just it's so complicated in inner cities like Chicago. Just any Detroit, any city like around the country that like has cold weather for a majority of the year. How are these kids getting out there and playing baseball when basketball? You can just jump in a gym. If you could ball, if you have a key to a gym, if you have somebody that can get you in a gym, you're in. That's it. So really, that's another thing, is that like unless we're opening up indoor facilities for baseball players, it's gonna take 25, 30 years to see them numbers go up like considerably. Now, as far as the other cities that are warm, they can have exchange programs, for kids. Like, if you're a baller, if you play basketball, and you can go out to New York or whatever big city that's more incorporates that sport. If they can do like exchange with that, that could be something that I just thought of on the fly. But that's really it. I mean, you're gonna have to have kids from the cold cities going to warmer cities to be playing baseball year round. This is not a sport that you can play 6 months and then other kids are playing 12 months a year and you're going to be competitive. Their growth is going to be just different.
But yeah, I
So,
think
yeah.
baseball, MLB can say, hey, they have the money to open these facilities and maybe even open it for everybody. But you can have like these are certain days that these certain teams from these certain areas can come in and work out, or these certain players. Like there's a way to do it.
I agree. And that's
Totally.
why. I mean, obviously, I keep bringing up Dana White, UFC. It's a different sport. I get it, but he puts that out in front and center too with his contenders and stuff, where it's like these people that he's gotten word from, he's allowing them the opportunity to try and train and become ultimately the people who are going to fight for his company in the future, and that could be the baseball too, where you spend $1 million on a facility somewhere, maybe not Compton, but somewhere out where people aren't maybe having the access or whatever, and use that as an investment tool to deter
and it's
people. No, go ahead.
it's a good investment, because if you get people from the community involved in the game, then they're going to spend money back into
They're
the
going to
game.
be lifelong fans.
Yeah.
It's like the YMCA type approach, where it's like people go there after school because sometimes they don't have anywhere else to go. And if your YMCA is attached to the MLB and you can learn how to play baseball, and they'll set up a YMCA type league in association with MLB, and you get all the equipment and stuff, like these are win-wins. These are things where it's like the people are already going to be there. You already have a nice big basketball facility, because most YMCA's do. Why not go in partnership and develop youth leagues? Because you got the damn Boy Scouts of America and all of their problems, and so there's kids who are kind of gonna they need a home, I guess is the best way to put it. The Boy Scouts have been dwindling, and the Girl Scouts, and I don't know about them, but these people need a place to go. They need a place to, and I don't know with the pandemic going on, but this is all
Well, that's another podcast all in itself.
right.
But
Exactly.
anyways, my guy Chris, like, it is way past his bedtime. I can see it.
Oh yeah, it's 12:44 over here.
Yeah, he's 3 hours ahead of us. So that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks for watching. You know the drill. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Ring the bell if you already are. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Appreciate Aaron, Chris. Really appreciate you guys doing this with us. It was
Thank you
fun.
very much for having me, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
And we